Reddit, what is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you've experienced? I was chasing a bug that was zipping around my apartment, moving oddly, like it'd stop and hover, not quite the right word, more like it'd stop and freeze in place midair, regularly. My girlfriend came over asking what the heck I was doing, trying to kill this weird bug, and we're both looking at it against a solid white background when it just vanishes, stopped existing. We looked everywhere, nothing. Bug just teleported out of the apartment. Your opponent has disconnected. I have a distinct memory of being in 3rd grade and checking out a horrible Harry book from the school library. If I recall correctly, the library had a 1-week rental policy which lined up with my class's schedule of visiting the library once a week. A week passed, and I grabbed the book from the side table to the left of my bed and brought it to school. I returned the book and got a new one. The next week, I was informed I couldn't check out a new book because my horrible Harry book was late. That night, the book was once again on my side table. I put it in my backpack and returned it again the next day. Then, it happened again. I returned the dang book 3 times, each time finding it in the same spot in my room. Still not sure what happened there. My kid and I were driving off an exit ramp from the highway, and there's a light at the end of the ramp. I was behind a heavy guy with a ponytail in an avocado green gremlin, and he had a prism dangling from his rearview mirror that was flashing me in the eyes in a really irritating way. My kid remarked that his car was ugly and I told her how those cars were popular in the 70s. When the lights turned green, he went right, we went left. The next block down is another light, and we pull up right behind an avocado green gremlin, heavy guy driving with ponytail, prism dangling from rearview mirror. There is no conceivable way he could have gotten there ahead of us without pulling a U-turn and passing us. There were no cross streets heading the other direction for nearly a mile, and my kid and I both shouted no way when we realized he was somehow in front of us again. He either had a doppelganger who drove the same car with the same prism, or something was up with space and time. Was in Savannah, Georgia visiting my brother who is stationed there. I was with my friend and my mom and we were going to this allegedly haunted restaurant called the Old Pink House. Well, my mom tends to mix up words a lot and told me the restaurant was called the Old Pink Lady. So when we were driving there I put the Old Pink Lady in the GPS and we followed it. We were almost at our destination and all 3 of us thought it was in a pretty weird location. It had brought us to this pretty ghetto neighborhood with no businesses or restaurants in sight. Then Siri tells us that we had arrived at our destination, which was just this house in the middle of this neighborhood. No street sign or anything with the word pink in it at all. Suddenly my friend goes, "Holy frick, look," and points to our destination. I crap you not. Sitting on the porch of this house was an old woman in a bright pink robe. It was incredibly weird and we were so confused because nothing in our vicinity had the word pink or lady. I've been lucid dreaming regularly for a few years now, so I have a lot of odd experiences both in and out of dreams related to that. One thing that sticks out in my mind is the dreams that last a really long time. I'm pretty sure these only happen when I am able to lucid dream while a little drunk, but they can really make me question reality. When I can have a full week in a few hours I stop trusting my senses and I get pretty spacey in the real world for a while after. I had a dream once where I went to prison, and I lived every second of every minute of every hour of every day of my life in prison, until I died of old age. When I woke up, I was paranoid for 2 weeks that I would wake back up in prison. I was looking at my crush across the street who was looking in front of her and she snapped her head to look at me. It wasn't like a turn, it was a full-on snap with no discernible motion in between. I remember trying to replicate the motion at home by recording and turning my head 90 degrees as fast as possible, but I couldn't. I think she's Satan, dude. Trying to attempt lucid dreaming too hard and ending up in a very violent realistic dream of me dying in different ways while still being aware, and all of them happening at once simultaneous while a perfectly normal other dream was taking place as well. It was the most bizarre experience ever. I had a can of Coke with my lunch, but couldn't finish it so I left it on the kitchen countertop. I know the exact spot. Then I got distracted and left it for about 20 minutes. I go back into the kitchen to retrieve it, but the can was gone. I figured my husband had disposed of it, so I got a new one from the fridge and went into my office with it. We both work from home. 10 minutes later, my husband comes into the office and asks me why I'm drinking from a new can while the other half full one was still in the kitchen. Sure enough, it was sitting there, in the exact same spot I knew I'd posed it after lunch. When I was 16, I forgot my phone downstairs. I knew it was somewhere in the living room, but I wasn't sure where, so I went to go look for it. Now the room was sort of like two rooms divided in half by a wall with a big opening in it. So I come down the stairs into the first half, turn left to walk through the opening into the second half. As I cross the threshold, I see my mom is sitting on the couch to the left reading a new book she got, with the cat sitting on the radiator next to her, and a glass of beer with a chip in the rim. And my phone is on top of a small pile of books next to the couch. As I step over to pick up my phone, everything sort of flickers, and I'm back on the stairs. I'm a little startled, but I go back down the stairs and stand in the first half of the living room. I can't see the couch or anything from there, but in my head I recite all the details I can think of. Sure enough, when I go back everything is exactly like I thought it would be. Thoroughly weirded out, like I hiccuped back through time or something. Lag spike. The house I used to live in had a swimming pool nearby. My family and I would go there a lot during the summer. This was one of those days. After swimming for a while I got out and was laying on my towel. It was a mostly clear day with only a couple of clouds here and there. In the distance I saw an airplane. I was watching it and following its path when it flew behind a cloud above us. It was a small cloud and the plane should have emerged within about 5 or 6 seconds. I was waiting for it to emerge, but about 15 seconds went by and there was no sign of it. I watched it a little more but there was still nothing. My eyes started darting around the sky looking for it, but there was no trace of it. I have no idea where it could have gone or what could explain its disappearance. It remained the weirdest thing I've ever witnessed. A few years ago I started having weird dreams, very vivid, so realistic that I wrote them down and started telling family about them. I would get like 15-60 minutes out of each dream, and they were all different moments of the same event. One day, 2 months later, the event from these dreams started happening in real life, and I realized it, and started predicting the future events based on my dreams. It got to the point where I would tell my friend this random person we've never met is going to show up soon, and she will say this, and I will say this back, and she'll hang out with us for 5 minutes and then leave, and then 5 minutes later, that exact series of events happened, word for word. Afterwards, I found my dream notes and they were spot on. I cannot explain. My brain is not the same ever since. When I was 16, I had a dream. I was riding my bike down an unfamiliar road with library books. I had just checked them out from the library behind me, near the baseball stadium. There's a 4-way stop ahead of me, and my view of the road to the right is blocked by trees. As I approach the intersection, I don't really make much of an attempt to slow down. Everyone's got to slow down. The only traffic on the road is going the same direction I am, and even if there was, they'd have to stop too. By the time I notice the olive green SUV, it's too late. The driver ran the light, easily going double the limit. They slammed into me, pinballing me into a nearby pole, then into a fire hydrant. My bike is crumpled on top of me. There's no question that I didn't survive. And yet, the most absurd thing is that just before the accident, my vision stopped. Just before I crossed the road, as my body was flung away, I simply stood there like a neutral observer. It was like watching the instant replay death cam and just waiting to respawn. It was an odd dream, to be sure, but one I wrote off as having an overactive imagination. After all, that scenario just wouldn't play out. I lived in the opposite direction, and it was far enough away that I'd simply drive instead. Good attempt, brain, but you won't fool me. I'm 19. Attending community college locally. My family had errands to do in that part of town, and it wasn't anything I could really help with after half an hour. However, I'd recently taken to checking out CDs from the library to burn to my collection later, and since my bike was still in the van, I might as well bike the mile or two down to the library. I hadn't found anything worth listening to that I didn't already had, but I did find a few books to my liking. I rode my bike back, the library behind me, the stadium further back. The only traffic was going the same direction, and there's no one else on the road. Not that I could really tell. There were trees blocking my view and I couldn't really hear anything over the cars passing me. I came to the intersection and a wave of terror just hit me with full force. I slammed on the brakes at that stop sign. For a split second, I wondered what the heck I was doing. Then an olive green SUV, easily going 50 in a 25 zone, roared out past the trees. Thanks to the sudden stop, they barely avoided clipping my front tire. I dang near fell off my bike shaking. I dragged it to the sidewalk, sitting on the grass, watching the cars go by, and just waiting for the adrenaline to calm enough that I could get back. 2 cars come to the stop sign. The first one passes the intersection. I saw my body crumpled by the fire hydrant. The second car passes in front of me. It's gone. My cat was curled up sleeping at the end of my bed, and so when I laid down to sleep I had to lay diagonally. She was in line with my pillow. I was lying there trying to get to sleep when after a few minutes I felt her slowly walk across my feet, her paws pressing on my ankles. I waited for her to get across before moving my legs to the right, where she had been sleeping. There was a block, something in the way of my feet. I was confused because she'd already moved across me, so I sat up and turned on the bedside light. There she was asleep, where she had been before I turned off the light. My cat is slow. She's always been a bit doddery since a young age. Rescue cat. I know she couldn't have moved across me and gone back to curling up on the other side of my feet that quickly. I held my breath to listen in case there was something else in the room. I was scared, but then realized my cat wasn't concerned, and if there was something malicious surely she would sense it, so I uneasily lay back down and it was a while before I felt safe to turn off the light again. I know something crossed my ankles that night. I was even glad when I felt it, as I thought I can't move back to normal now. Me and a buddy of mine went to go see, I think it was Hercules in theaters, and he always puts his phone and keys in the cup holder in between us. The movie ends and we can't find his phone in the holster, on the floor, or really anywhere in that row or the 2 in front behind it. We go and search his car. Nothing. Head back into the theater and have the lights turned on so we can find them. And it turns out the keys and phone were in a cup holder on the furthest back row, opposite side of the theater, when we were the only ones in there. Cup holder portal. This happened a few months ago. My English class had pen pals with some kids from an elementary school nearby. My teacher handed out the last letters they would send us for the year, and I looked mine over and read it or whatever. Then I put it away. A few days later, my teacher passes out the last letters our pen pals would send us for the year. Mine was sealed, and it was identical to the one I received in the past. I looked inside. It still had the grammar error the kid wrote in the last letter. It also came with an orange cross the kid colored, and a bunch of other subtle details that were identical to the first letter I received. I looked in my accordion file and couldn't find the first letter. I watched the entire world freeze in place for a few seconds. I was playing with a plastic toy gun as a child that also came with toy bullets. They were purely aesthetic, and while you could load them, they had no other purpose. There was no spring, just something that reloaded each chamber since it was an old school cowboy 6-shooter. The barrel was even plugged. Well, I was messing around when suddenly I heard a loud pop and I watched the bullet I had loaded shoot across the room. Bullet was missing from the chamber, but the barrel was still plugged. I never found the bullet. A friend of mine had this big long-haired cat named Lemieux back when we were around 14 or so. We were sitting in the basement playing video games with our backs against the wall when Lemieux walked out of the bedroom on the opposite end of the basement from the stairs, crossed in front of us, and then headed up. Then 10 minutes later, Lemieux walked out of the bedroom on the opposite end of the basement from the stairs, crossed in front of us, and then headed up. Neither of us knew what the frick happened. When I was maybe 10 years old, I remember vividly getting up and going about my morning routine for about an hour. Then when I was in the kitchen eating breakfast, I abruptly woke up in my bed again. I was really confused about the whole thing the rest of the day. It all felt so real. And to top it off, everyone I saw when I got up the first time was wearing the same outfits the second time. When I was a young pup in college, we had a payphone in our small dorm. Marcus was in the common room with a couple of us watching TV. Marcus was waiting for a 7 p.m. call from his brother Phineas back home 4 states away. Not real names. The phone rings at 7 sharp and we turn the TV down and hear this. "Hey Phineas, Marcus here." "Yeah, I'm Marcus. Who are you, Phineas? You don't sound like my brother. What? No frickin' way, dude. Seriously, put Phineas on. This ain't funny. No, man. This is Chico, California, not Las Vegas. We are all listening to this confusion, totally wondering what the heck is going on. Marcus hangs up after a few minutes and tells us the story. Someone named Phineas was calling his brother Marcus, a freshman at UNLV, and got Marcus, a freshman at Chico State, waiting for a call from his brother Phineas. I work at an international racetrack just north of Pittsburgh. We have a nationally renowned karting track, and a huge racing organization was there for the weekend doing a national title race, USPKS. I was actually off that weekend, and the karting director called me at like 6:30 that morning on Saturday and asked me if I could pick up a shift because someone called off. So I did, and I came in to work the track as a flagger. I'm on a sheltered wooden platform near the back of the track in turn 12. Got my radio on me and my flags. Race is going on and I'm just hanging out watching karts fly by me at like 50 miles per hour, making sure no one gets fricked up or goes off the track. I see a kart coming out of turn 11. It's a slight right hand bend and then goes 500 feet into turn 12, which is a mean right hand turn. My platform is directly in between these two turns and off the track another 50 feet. So if I'm staring straight, I can easily see the section of track from 11-12. As soon as the kart comes out of 11, maybe comes another 50 feet, it literally skipped to turn 12. It teleported. There was no linear movement or increase in speed. I did not blink or close my eyes. It was at 11, and then suddenly 12. Even if I did blink, there is absolutely no way the kart itself was moving fast enough to cover that amount of distance in the time my eyes would have been closed. What's even more fricked up and also backs up if I did happen to blink, is that the sound of the kart teleported as well. I started to faintly hear it coming up to 11, and then it was the distinct engine braking of a two-stroke when it came to 12 to brake hard and take the turn in a matter of a mere millionth of a fraction of a second. I couldn't believe what happened, and my heart felt like it literally stopped, and it almost triggered a full-blown panic attack. I couldn't stop thinking about what the frick just happened. I didn't tell anyone. No one would have believed me, and I still have never told anyone this before because it just seems too outlandish and unbelievable. I know what I have seen, and the kart absolutely went through some sort of time and space warp, or I don't even fricking know. Once I had guests at my apartment and I gave them the bed for the night and I slept on the floor. It took me a while to get sleeping, and I remember that I checked the time. OMG, it's already 12:15 and I'm still awake. Couple minutes later, some bright white light was piercing my eyelids. I opened my eyes and there was the full moon just sitting on the window, like in the middle of it. I checked the time. It was 12:17. No way that the moon crawled that distance in 2 minutes. There was no clouds near and far. The bastard just popped into existence or something. Or something had previously been standing in the window, obstructing your view. I was at a very large zoo with my daughter, who was 5 at the time. We were matching outfits so she could be easily identified if something were to happen. We were in the petting zoo petting goats together, when I look over and see my daughter taking an older man's hand and walking away with him. I took off running. You never know your true abilities until you fear for your child's life, only for my daughter and the man to be nowhere in sight. I had only run maybe 50 feet in a very open space. I was immediately crying and hyperventilating, for fear that my daughter was gone. But suddenly I felt a little hand grasp mine and my daughter's sweet voice asking me what happened. Everything was fine and we enjoyed our day at the zoo, but I can't seem to wrap my mind around the experience. The little girl had on the same shirt, same shorts, same shoes, same pigtails, and the same large birthmark on her neck as my daughter. Still gives me chills. Something tells me that's not your real daughter anymore. Friend and I were driving towards Stevens Pass Ski Resort in Washington State. There's only one highway to get there. Followed GPS and kept going and going. Decided to turn around and found it. No freaking way we passed the ski resort without noticing it. Tall mountain with multiple ski runs. That was 3.5 years ago. We're still scratching our heads about how that happened. You're not alone. Other people have experienced exactly that trying to find Stevens. It's kinda like urban legend for those of us that live near HWY2. My first year of college, I left class and went to my car. I opened the passenger side door, put my 2 books for that day and my big ass notebook on the seat, then went around and got in the driver's side. As I was pulling out of the parking lot and up the street some, I reached over to my books where I had a piece of paper with some directions on it sticking out so I could grab them when I needed them. Books and notebook weren't there. I freaked out thinking maybe I was just thinking I did that, since it was my everyday routine. Turned around, went back to the parking lot in case I set them on top of my car and they fell off. They weren't in the parking lot. I ended up searching my car for about 30 minutes. Maybe they had slipped under the seat. Don't know how, but maybe. Maybe I put them in the trunk or something. Some crap. Went all the way back to the classroom because maybe I left them there. Nope. I ended up having to buy 2 brand new books and get all the notes I needed from classmates. I never saw the books or the notebook again. One night, I was home alone for a full evening. I went to bed around 1 am. I was jolted awake at about 4:30 am by the sound of my shower running. I believe the initial burst of water hitting the porcelain is what woke me up. And for the record, my shower knob is the kind where you pull all the way out on it to start the water. I walked into the bathroom, the lights were off, but the shower was running, and it was turned all the way to the cold side. I turned the lights on, turned my shower off and went back to bed. I couldn't sleep anymore at this point, so I watched some Netflix. No more than 15 minutes into an episode of Family Guy, I got up to go to use the bathroom. On my way out of the bathroom, I peeked into the shower and the porcelain was totally dry. My friend and I took a trip to Los Angeles. We were getting ready to go out in the hotel when I looked at my phone. The date read the 1st of January, 1980. Thinking that my phone may not be working, I text my friend as a test. The text I sent read, I guess it's 1980. He was in the restroom. His phone was 5 feet away from me. I got a text back from him that said no, it's 1986. I thought he was pranking me, so I picked up his phone and checked. He didn't have that outgoing text to me. Twice in my life a stranger has come up to me and pointed out that I had something on my ear. I don't really understand what they say, so I'll lean in a bit. They reach for it and pull back what looks like a shish kebab stick that had something that looks like earwax on it. Like I could have just been stabbed in the ear and couldn't stop it. The only thing I can think of was it a misdirection to rob me, but all my personal items were accounted for afterwards. I just gave the guys a crazy look and walked away. The 2 times it has happened, one was in a county fair in Texas, and the other was Mumbai, India. We were on our way to Savannah, Gar, taking what I call the long 16. Interstate 16 used to have no real stops on it. So me and my dad are hungry. It's around 11:45 midnight, and we both see a sign for Steak and Shake. Not a billboard, an exit sign saying Steak and Shake this exit. So we pull off, follow the second sign and drive for a good 3 miles. It's nowhere to be found. So we stop at a gas station and ask where the nearest one is. He says Macon, about 2 hours north. We looked at each other, bought a candy bar and left. We decided to try again and did a small loop, illegal median crossing FTW, and drove back down. The signs disappeared. Not even a sign that said there was a station on the exit, so we pulled off the exit again, and the gas station was gone. Just an empty field, but we still had the Snickers and sodas. I was running around my house when I was a little kid and tripped, falling headfirst into a table with very sharp points on the legs. I was sure I was going to be impaled through the face and die when suddenly I stopped in midair, as if time had frozen, and I felt like a cold hand was holding me inside my stomach. I was moved slightly to the right after about 2-3 seconds of being suspended and ended up missing the table and sliding on the floor, crying. I hear familiar voices in my head that feel like they echo through this reality, almost as if I'm in a coma and they're my friends and family coming to talk to me. For split moments, almost like a deja vu, I know whose voices they are, but that fades away pretty quickly. I end up feeling a little lost and homesick until I shake it off. I woke up one day missing a molar in the back of my mouth. I asked my GF, "Am I missing a tooth?" She replied yes, and I proceeded to live out an entire day before waking up. Same thing. "Babe, am I missing a tooth?" This happened 5 times before I woke up in the universe I am now. Between then and now I doubted everything. Each time I was convinced of the reality of the new universe. 4 times I was wrong. I don't trust anything anymore. When I was a kid, my mom was having a conversation with me through my doorway. She was standing in the hall talking to me and her room was down the hall from mine. When we were done talking, she left and walked towards her room. Moments later, my mom comes and asks me something again through my doorway, but she came from the opposite direction of her room and had different clothes on. It was like a clone of my mom came to talk to me right after her. I went to my mom's room after my second conversation, but nobody was in there. My mom and the first set of clothes I spoke to was gone. When I was 10, I was playing the classic game of door push of war with my 11-year-old sister. We both pushed as hard as we could for a minute or so, then I managed to slam the door shut. I was convinced that I had achieved victory, but as I turned around, there was my very confused sister, wondering why she was in her equally confused brother's room. I did a photo shoot for my husband's birthday, and there were several different sets to choose from. One of the sets I picked had a stained glass window and candles. I had seen some pictures of the set on the website, but nothing that was taken from the door, what you would see when you walk in. When I walked in, I realized that I had had dreams with this exact set in it for years. I'm talking since I was maybe 16 years old. This set had shown up in a couple of dreams a year, consistently. It seriously freaked me out. Went to a summer camp. There were 17 others with the same name as mine, and my name is not that common. There were around 40-60 people on that camp. I was biking in the park and I saw a woman and her dog both walking backwards, and when I looked again they were walking normal again. There's a bus stop fairly near to my house that I drive past on a very regular basis, probably 30+ times per week. I've lived here for 5 years. Every single time I pass the bus stop, the same guy is there waiting. Now, I'd get that if I saw him at the same time each day, like matching work schedules, but it isn't. I've seen him at every daytime imaginable. 6.30 on the way to work, 3 AM on a Sunday morning, he is always there, except when my fiance is in the car. He vanishes then. Either I'm more cuckoo than I thought or someone's fricking with me. This is Pizza Cat. He looks for people like you to befriend and give them the gift of unlimited pizza. This can only be granted if you comment pizza please. Thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.